Thank you for tuning in to This Week Explained, the intelligence-based geopolitical podcast that keeps you informed about the world around you. We are grateful for your support and appreciate you being a part of our community of informed listeners. We would love for you to share This Week Explained with your friends, family, and colleagues. Together, we can make a difference by sharing knowledge and fostering meaningful conversations. So, what are you waiting for? Help us grow our community by sharing This Week Explained with your loved ones.
My bulky blender was such a pain to use, I ended up hardly ever using it at all. But the BlendJet 2 portable blender makes blending so easy and convenient, I use it just about every day. BlendJet 2 is portable, so you can blend up a smoothie at work, a protein shake at the gym, or even a margarita on the beach. It's small enough to fit in a cup holder, but powerful enough to blast through tough ingredients like ice and frozen fruit with ease. BlendJet 2 is whisper quiet, so you can make your morning smoothie without waking up the whole house. It lasts for 15 plus blends and recharges quickly via a USB-C cord. Best of all, BlendJet 2 cleans itself. Just blend water with a drop of soap and you're good to go. With over 30 plus colors and patterns to choose from, there's a BlendJet 2 to complement just about any style. I absolutely love the Lisa Frank edition. What are you waiting for? Go to blendjet.com and grab yours today. And be sure to use the promo code Analytics12 to get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. No other portable blender on the market comes close to the quality, power, and innovation of BlendJet 2. They guarantee you'll love it or your money back. Blend anytime, anywhere with the BlendJet 2 portable blender. Go to blendjet.com and use the code Analytics12 to get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. Shop today and get the best deal ever.
You are now listening to This Week Explained.
Hello, and welcome to This Week Explained, the independent geopolitical podcast that tackles all the major global events. We're so glad that you're here as we bring you all the insights and analysis on what's happening around the world. As always, I'm Tiana, with Kervin as my co-host, and together we'll help you understand the complexities of our dynamic, ever-changing world. And first, we would like to shout out a new friend, Allie. She sent us a lovely little message on Spotify confirming what her husband said, who, in case you guys are wondering, he's our friend from Canada, Caleb.
Canadian Caleb.
Canadian Caleb and Miss Canadian Allie.
Miss Canada.
Miss Canadian. Miss Canada. I didn't mean to say Canada.
Well, Caleb, I just want to know, I got a question for you. How is it possible that you got your wife to listen to a podcast that you listen to? Because I struggle with that every day.
Yeah, I don't listen to any of his podcasts. Actually, I don't really listen to podcasts at all, honestly. Whoops.
Except for Serial. You listen to the one Serial podcast.
Yeah, that one. And then there was this one podcast. There was
Hamish.
What the hell's wrong? Yeah, what the hell's wrong with Hamish? And then there was another one about the Black Dahlia, like a family.
Oh, yeah. That one was really good.
That one was wild. But anyways, those are it. It's very sporadic for me.
Yeah.
And then I listen to ours occasionally. But anyways, Allie, thank you so much for your sweet message through Spotify. We really appreciate it. And we will continue to shout out our listeners on here. Because
every week.
We're just so great. We're just so grateful. And it makes us happy to see messages. And it makes us happy that people are listening and giving us a shot. And we don't always get it right, but we're trying here.
And we're also not saying that we should be the only thing that you listen to get your news or geopolitical information. We're saying I think we should be one of the sources, and then you should listen to other sources. Well, yeah, I'm a little biased, a tiny bit biased.
Hey, that's okay. Well, anyways, thank you again, Allie, for giving us a listen, and thank you, Caleb, for influencing her.
Yes,
to do so. I need we need more women listening because we have a lot of men and
there's
girl
no problem
power.
with that.
But I want more. I want more
girl
girls.
power.
I want more girl power.
And honestly, I do too. I think that maybe contrary to what a lot of people believe, if it's anything like our household, we kind of, like me as a guy, leans on Tiana a lot for the household and to, tell me what's going on a lot of times because I'm so focused in on one thing. And it's what we talk about on the podcast.
And it's geopolitics.
Yeah, I all day, every day. And so Tiana gets to update me on the other important things that go on. So I really appreciate that. And I think that's a lot of households that happens.
So anyways, more girl power. Thank you for joining the club, Allie. We appreciate you. Let's move on.
Well, since you said influence,
what?
Can we talk about the Military Influencers Conference?
We can do that at the end.
Okay.
Let's get to it. That's not what people are here for.
Okay.
All right. Let's get to what's on the agenda.
So Russia, Ukraine, obviously, we'll do that. We'll do Israel, Hamas. Those are two conflicts that are raging in the world today, the two big ones. Also, Yemen has jumped in to the Middle East conflict.
Hey.
Yep. Welcome, Yemen and the Houthis to the conflict.
Oh, dang.
With that, Germany has now warned all of Europe that a war is coming for Europe. We'll get into that. Did you think we were done talking about conflicts? No. There's a looming conflict in Mali. There's some internal strife that's going on in that country. And that's going to transition very well into how Russia is expanding their presence in Africa, even though Prigozhin has died and the Wagner Group, we thought, is in shambles. No, they've actually expanded in Africa. Now, from conflicts to, hey, maybe can we prevent a conflict? U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese leader Xi Jinping are set to meet, or they have a meeting set up in San Francisco later this month. We'll see if that ever happens. And at the end, so the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security has warned of a future Hamas-style terror attack. We're going to get into that and some tips on what to do to maybe I know last week we talked about protecting yourself during a terrorist attack, but this week we're going to go through the ramifications of what that means if a terrorist attack happens and where we could see those terrorist attacks happen.
Is DC one of the places?
I don't want to spoil it for anybody.
Okay.
Spoiler alert.
Well, let's jump right in with an update on Russia's war in Ukraine.
So besides Russia dealing with the consequences of that special military operation in Ukraine, Russian officials this week have had to suppress anti-Semitic riots. So this is involving their law enforcement, not the military. So they haven't had to pull any resources from Ukraine. But this was actually in Dagestan. It's a republic in Russia's far south. And it's it's a majority Muslim population in Dagestan. And what they saw was hundreds of Russians swarm the airport because an aircraft was flying in from Tel Aviv, Israel. The situation at the time was very tense. You think of hundreds, maybe even thousands of people going to an airport to storm it. That can get pretty crazy. Now, Russian President Putin accused Ukraine of influencing these riots because Ukraine is the blame for everything that happens in Russia. But it does reflect a concerning trend of radicalization, and that's fueled by their hyper-nationalist ideologies within Russia. So now we have these sects that are even more nationalist, and so now they're going out and doing these things. So look, these ideologies are honestly, they're contributing to all of these interethnic tensions, and this is worldwide. We're seeing it all over the place.
Yeah,
Cornell shut down today. They're not having classes because a student was making anti-Semitic, or they said they were going to attack Jews on Cornell. And so this is disturbing. I don't like it. I don't think anybody should.
Right. Okay. So how are the military operations progressing in Ukraine?
Right. So Let's talk about Ukraine first. Ukraine's still making advances near Bakhmut and in Zaporizhia. At the same time, Russian forces are actually starting to face challenges. They're using their Storm Z units as their frontal assaults. So that's one of their more specialized units. And they're getting a lot of pushback from Ukraine. Russia also conducted missile and drone strikes against Ukraine. And they started to use a new, what they call smart glide bomb. And this, to me, indicates that there's an escalation in the conflict's intensity, even though we're in those months that I thought it would calm down.
Well, what can you tell us about these new glide bombs?
Yeah, there's a few of them in play, but the one that Ukraine is most worried about, it's the Fab 1500. It's a high explosive, high capacity aircraft bomb. Fab, FAB, stands for Fugasnaya Avia Bomba, which just means aerial demolition bomb in Russian. Included in the payload, they have a laser and a satellite guidance system, which increases the accuracy of their strikes. Now, most people consider this as a bunker buster bomb, something that can be fired off. It penetrates through a bunker and then explodes to destroy anything in the bunker. Russia says, if you believe what Russia puts out, that those bombs can destroy bunkers that are 66 feet underground. I believe that's 30 meters if we're not looking at George Washington's plan for America to use a different system.
I don't know if people are going to get that. Yeah. I'm glad you clarified that it was from a skit from SNL about George Washington. Okay.
A few of our listeners will get that because I know them and they watched it.
Yeah.
It can also blast through I'll use meters this time. It'll blast through 3 meters of reinforced concrete.
That's wild. Did you happen to also see the story about how North Korea is sending munitions to Russia and they have all of their factories working at full capacity in order to meet the demands of Russia's ammunitions?
Yeah, I have a post ready for that.
Okay, and then they're saying in return Russia is going to help with the satellite.
Yep. So you want to get into that just a little bit?
Well, I mean,
we have a little bit of time.
We need to.
Yeah. So North Korea has sent enough munitions to keep Russia active in the war for the next, I believe they said 2 months. But like you just mentioned, North Korea has all their factories on 24/7, and they are forcing, I will say, some would say hiring. I'm going to say forcing.
Right.
More and more citizens to be involved in those factories. And so there's going to be more coming to Russia. And like you said, in response to that, Russia has agreed to help them launch their spy satellites. Remember, 2 of them failed, and North Korea's
in a spectacular fashion.
Spectacular failure. This is all coming from South Korea's intelligence agency.
Okay.
And South Korea said that North Korea should be ready to launch a new spy satellite within the next few months.
Okay. Well, thank you for that update. And also keep an eye out on the Instagram page because, like he said, he does have a post ready for it. Well, while the conflict in Eastern Europe is still raging on, let's discuss the other large-scale conflict that is currently
happening
right now in Gaza. This one being obviously between Israel and Hamas.
Let's stick with that. Israel, Hamas. We're not talking about Israel versus Gazans or Palestinians.
Okay.
So the IDF, Israeli Defense Force, versus Hamas, who I consider a terrorist organization.
Right. So let's start with just an update on where the two sides stand and then get into the future implications of the war.
Yeah, so we'll start with the Israeli Defense Forces. They said that its soldiers had killed dozens of terrorists who barricaded themselves in buildings and tunnels. They said that those Hamas terrorists attempted to attack troops, and that's why they went ahead and killed them. The IDF also said it's continued to strike hundreds of Hamas targets from the air. Let's flip side that. Hamas says from their PR department that Israel is indiscriminately attacking civilian locations. The IDF said that in one attack, an aircraft was guided by forces on the ground. It struck a building with over 20 Hamas terrorist operatives inside. Hamas says they were not in there, and it was actually civilians. So let's flip it again. Hamas released footage of some of the hostages that are still in their possession. One of the hostages asked that Israel release Palestinian prisoners in exchange for them, the hostages, to be released as well.
Mm-hmm.
Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, rejected the plan for release. He also rejected calls for a ceasefire, saying that call for the ceasefire was actually a call for Israel to surrender to Hamas. Now, the Israeli military right now has massed tens of thousands of soldiers along Gaza's perimeter fence, and that's with tanks and artillery, so that ground offensive, it's very fluid right now.
Yeah,
because influx. Because Israel wants to perform the offensive, but all of their allies are asking them to stall it so that they can get civilians out of there before they start the offensive.
Which will be carried out for what purpose?
It's the war. That's a long extended war. Benjamin Netanyahu says it is for the annihilation of Hamas as a terrorist organization.
And not Palestinians.
He has not said Palestinians. Now, pro-Palestinian people will
claim
obviously they do not like Benjamin Netanyahu.
Right.
There's a lot of people that don't like Benjamin Netanyahu.
Right.
But they say that he actually is trying to eradicate all of Palestine. Now, you have to take people by their words and then see their actions. Right now, Benjamin Netanyahu says he wants to eradicate Hamas, not Palestine.
Right. And
we'll see where that
he's not
goes.
trying to push out Palestinians so that they can take over, right?
Right.
Not
as far as
I mean, we don't know, we can't say one way or the other, but as of right now, that's not the plan.
That's not the plan. Listen,
yeah.
Israel,
It's such a hot button issue.
Yeah,
and
we were just talking about this, right?
Yeah.
That Israel actually provides electricity, water, all the typical resources and infrastructure for Gaza. Hamas does not provide anything.
They're just
as
the
a
government.
They're just a government. And something I didn't think we would talk about, but you kind of brought up to me that, hey, we kind of need to touch on this. The lead PR guy for Hamas stated that, Hamas has 3,000 miles of tunnels through Gaza or through all of Palestine. Some of those go into Israel, underground tunnels. And so some people have asked Hamas to allow citizens into the tunnels within Gaza. And Hamas has said that those tunnels are not for civilians; they're only for Hamas. He also went as far to say that Hamas is not there to protect civilians; they are there to protect themselves.
That?
Yeah.
Oh,
so Hamas is not an organization there to protect Palestinians; they are there for Hamas.
I mean, obviously, you can see by their behavior. I mean,
right, and
you can see. And by them hiding behind their civilians.
Human shields.
Right.
We know this for a fact. That doesn't make it right for Israel to just bomb those civilian sites indiscriminately.
Of course not. Right.
But also, I'm just trying to get everybody's head into how Hamas sees this. They want the eradication of Israel, and some people that I respect very much say that they're there to just get rid of Israel so that Palestine can have its own state. That's false. I want to tell those people that that's false. They want to because they say they're not there to eradicate Jews from the world. So their charter that they wrote in 1988, Hamas's charter, said they are there for the eradication of the Jews.
Specifically.
Now, in 2017, they changed the word Jews to Zionists.
Okay.
But if you understand language and vocabulary, Zionist is interchangeable with Judaism and Christianity.
But I've seen a lot of articles saying that's not the case.
Well, do you believe their charter and what they say as a government they want to do? Or are you talking about the Zionism?
The part about Zionism.
Oh, Zionism is
About how it's
definitely an
not
anti-Semitic
interchangeable.
trope for Judaism.
Okay.
The people
Well.
that will say, "Oh, that's not true. That's not true." You're playing word games.
Okay.
Also within the charter, it says that Hamas is ready to allow all religions to peacefully observe their religion within Palestine. The caveat to that is the next sentence says, but they have to understand that Islam is the one true religion, Allah is the one true God, and you have to abide by the laws of Islam.
But
So
you can still practice
you can
your
still
own religion?
practice your religion
As long as you acknowledge
as long as you abide by the
Muslim.
laws of Islam.
Islam. Oy, oy, oy. Okay, well,
So that's where we're at.
I'm glad you gave more details.
I think a lot of people are going to push back against me about Zionism, but
Right.
that has become a term even in the West now for a lot of people who are pro-Palestine or
Yeah, I've seen it thrown around a lot recently.
Yeah, Zionism. So Zion is a word that's used heavily within Islam, within Judaism, and obviously in Christianity. And so Zionists are Jews and Christians, and that's how they view that. And
so they're both in that group.
Yes.
Okay. So,
but
okay.
the main factor is, and Iran, right? We've talked about this all the time. This is what Iran talks about. What's your ultimate goal for the Middle East? The eradication of the Jews. They don't say Israel. And to kind of delineate, oh, well, this is Israel, it isn't Judaism. That's just, I can't get behind that because that's what they say. As somebody who went at DLI, I had to go through a lot of Arabic, a lot of
cultural classes, and historical classes. Yeah.
And we watched a lot of news in Arabic.
Al Jazeera,
which is a moderate. It's not an extremist news site. It's very moderate. So we were watching Al Jazeera one time, and an earthquake happened in Egypt. And they had an Egyptian official come on and talk about what happened in Egypt, because it was a devastation. Obviously, it's an earthquake. And what he said was that it was actually the Jews that had conspired together to create the earthquake that created the destruction in Egypt. So that is the mindset of some officials. We're talking about government officials within the Arab world.
Whew. Well,
and it's all nuanced, and we just don't have enough time to get to everything.
That'd be a whole other episode. Well, obviously, since the ceasefire seems to be a bit of a pipe dream right now, has there been any updates to opening up that corridor into Egypt for Palestinians looking to flee the horrors of this abominable war?
Yeah, they did open the Rafah border, but it's only for a list of foreign passport holders. This included just 7 American non-governmental organization members, NGO members, and there are thousands of Americans.
They allowed
displaced
7 through.
Yep. And that list is changing every day.
Okay.
And more people can get through. You just can't have 100,000 people rush through a border. It's just not feasible.
That would also be a prime spot for someone to attack it, perhaps?
Yeah, obviously.
Right.
And what we don't know is how many Palestinians are going to be allowed to cross the border for humanitarian reasons.
Well, why is Egypt, an Arab country, so reluctant to take in Palestinians? That seems like a no-brainer. I mean, let people come in, and then once a ceasefire peace agreement is finalized, they can return home. Kind of like what we do for, I mean, it's not the same thing, obviously, comparing a weather event to a war, but other like states would open their homes and stuff for our people whenever we would have hurricanes hit, and then we would go back. I mean, not always. We wouldn't always be able to go back, but I don't know if I like that analogy, but
no, it is a good analogy. Displaced from your home, New Orleanians displaced from their home during Katrina were offered solitude in other areas.
And
to get out of it.
we're only mentioning just Katrina right now because nobody really talks about Ida.
Yeah.
But it did to Homa and everything. But
yeah, because it's a major.
Katrina's the one. Yeah, Katrina is the one that people know most about.
Yeah, and we were talking to a global audience.
Yeah,
you can't say Hurricane Ike
or
like,
Ida, or
what is that?
Who cares? What year was that?
Right, and I get that on a global level. Who does like it? It in the grand scheme of things, other stuff. You don't just keep track of everything. No one does.
You can't.
Exactly. But like everything in geopolitics, this is all very nuanced. Even our discussion earlier about how Hamas feels about Jews or Israel, that's very nuanced, and people can have different opinions on it and express your opinions and tell us your opinions on it. So it's just very nuanced. Now, Egypt, because you asked about Egypt, they have understandable concerns about this unsustainable refugee flow. With that, we talked about you can't have hundreds of thousands of people flowing through the border at once. There's also the possibility of terrorist threats getting through the border, like you mentioned.
Right.
You don't know who's coming through the border.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also longer-term Palestinian political aspirations. And let me talk about that just for a second. Egypt is worried at this time that a large group of Palestinians are going to come through Egypt, settle in Egyptian areas, and then not really claim those lands, but try to influence what's going on in that region and in the country. And that's something the government is worried about. And all that needs to be taken into account when you're pushing for these humanitarian corridors. Recent reporting has also pointed the finger at Israel because, and you touched on this earlier, some people believe that Israel wants to use this mass border crossing of Palestinians to overtake all of what is currently Palestine. So they haven't said it publicly. And I think Cole from Alcon Intel posted it was a draft of the, I believe it was Israeli intelligence report on some of the things that Israel could plan to do. And one of those was that once the Palestinians are moved out, Israelis can then move in to those areas and take over. And so that was released, obviously, by Hamas, saying, look, what we're telling you is correct. When those Palestinians leave, our people are going to leave and the Israelis are going to take over
their homes. Yeah.
If that is the case, if that is what Israel is planning to do, I believe the Western allies need to put a stop to that.
Absolutely.
I am of the opinion that should not happen. And maybe people are surprised to hear me say that because I might sound so pro-Israel that I can't see past that. But I'm pro-people, honestly.
Yeah.
And these people have built their houses and their communities there. They've lived there for decades. You can't just push them out.
Not just decades. Palestinians have been there for, really long. I'm not even going to wager.
Well, okay, so so in Gaza, here's what happened in Gaza. Let's take another historical, and then we'll move real quick because we're getting into
sidebars.
I know, but so Israel actually controlled that land for a while, and then in 2006 they gave up the land within Gaza to allow Palestinians to move in there, and so Israel sort of just made the Israeli state where they are currently.
Okay.
And then Palestine kind of surrounds the Israeli state.
Okay.
So Palestinians were pushed out for a while.
Which is not cool.
Not cool. But also, Israel fought a war and won that war.
And that's unfortunately what happens when you win. You get to take, we're seeing that happen right now in Russia as they're overtaking parts of Ukraine.
Right. And they are saying they're taking claims.
And then we take it back, and then they take it back. Ukraine takes it back. They're going back and forth.
So that's why I'm saying for like 4 decades.
Okay.
And Palestinians, if you talk to Palestinians, they will call themselves refugees because they're being oppressed by Israel.
Right.
And they're not in their true home until Israel is gone and they can be in their true Palestinian home.
Right.
So that's why I say like 4 decades, 4 to 6 decades. These people, these families have created a home where they are in Gaza. And
Right.
it is not right because the Palestinian people, let me say again, the Palestinian people did not attack Israel. I get that Hamas is the government of Gaza. It's not the government of Palestine, but it is the government of Gaza. They are a terrorist organization, and they attacked Israel. The fight is between Israel and Hamas. Want to be clear on that. Israel versus Hamas. That does not mean you get to displace hundreds of thousands of Palestinians because you're fighting against a terrorist organization.
Thank you for taking a stance on that, my darling.
That's an easy stance for me to take.
Yeah, I know.
think.
But some people are just so skewed one way or the other that they, like everybody, their religion, their worldview, their biases, it colors their opinions on things, and they're just unable to see another perspective because it goes against what they believe in their core.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because make no mistake, through all the political and religious discourse that you just talked about, this fight is all about land, and it's about a home for different sects of people. Different cultures.
Ethnic groups.
If you take God out of the conversation, because we talk about this all the time, like, oh, it's a religious battle and they have 2 different gods, and that's why each god has told them that this is their land. If you take God out of the equation, there is still a fight because land is an important commodity to people.
It's a resource that it's shrinking, the amount of land that we can access.
The fact that Israel provides all these resources to Palestine, to Gaza, that has to be something that, because Palestinians, Arabs, are very proud people. I don't think they like that. I don't think they want Israel to keep supplying them with their goods and resources. They want the land that they had hundreds of years ago so that they can have those resources. And so that's what all the fighting is about. It's an issue about land. So I just wanted to, I'm glad you brought it up because I wanted to say that. We also don't know how many Palestinians are actually willing to leave their homes, because it's not just about, oh, well, Israel's going to come in and take all of this land. They have no guarantee that their home is going to still exist if or when they return.
Right, which the amount of stress that has to be on them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, put yourself in that situation, and that you had to leave your home during, we talked about a hurricane.
Which is not the same thing.
No, it's not the same. But
no.
As people who have
analogy.
done this. No, but I'm talking about as people who have done this, who have done that, who have left homes because a hurricane was coming, your mind the entire time is, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Am I going to have a home to come back to? And there are people in New Orleans who do not leave during a hurricane.
For that reason.
That is important to them. Rightfully so. And then, this is, I do not like the war discussion. I'm not a warmonger. I don't like to talk about war. You talk to people who have been to war. Those are the people who try to stop war.
Yeah, you've been through and been a part of numerous conflicts that have gone on in the last 20 years or so.
It takes a toll.
And you're tired. You're tired.
And it's even worse on civilians. And that's why I'm so passionate about keeping civilians safe, because I trained for war. That's all I trained for in the beginning stages of my Army career. Even though I was an intelligence analyst, I'm not a combat veteran. I'm not a combat MOS or job.
Right.
I still trained for that. Still fired a weapon. Still was told you might have to kill the enemy.
I remember you coming home with black eyes and like scratches and stuff whenever you would have to do like actual
close combat.
Close combat. I remember one of our friends, Treva, they got to kick each other's butts and they loved it. They got to beat each other up.
You take out a lot of frustration on another person, and it's sanctioned by the U.S. Army. But, the civilians never asked for this.
Right.
They're caught
just
in this
caught
battle
in the middle. Yeah.
because they chose or their family chose to live in a certain location. And just because you chose to live in that location doesn't mean you need to die. It's all tragic. And this, I'm saying, both pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, this entire discussion, this me versus you discourse, it distracts from the civilian reality and the tragedy impacted on civilians.
On both sides.
On both sides.
Yeah. Well, I absolutely agree with that. I don't think we should condemn a whole group because of what some people have done.
What their governments are doing.
Yeah. So we should definitely be highlighting the toll it is taking on civilians on both sides. And I want to continue the talk about this war and get into what could become a regional conflict because it looks like the Houthis in Yemen are going forward with helping Hamas counter Israel's offensive. What is the latest there? And also, well, I'll ask the question after.
Okay. And just a little reminder for the Houthis they are another proxy group that Iran uses.
Of course, because they don't actually want to get their hands dirty.
No, because if Iran gets involved, the U.S. gets involved.
Right.
And we talked about that last week a little bit. Iran's not ready to face. It's not me being from the U.S. and I just have these rose-colored U.S. glasses. I think if you ask the majority of the global population, hey, do you want to go to war with the U.S.? They would say no. They would try to do anything to prevent that.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. The Houthis have decided to hop in. It's a major escalation in the conflict between Israel and then, the Iranian-backed axis of resistance. That's what I'm calling them now.
Okay.
Axis of resistance, not the axis of evil.
Yeah. Axis of resistance.
That includes the Houthis, Hezbollah, Syria, Hamas, all those groups. The Houthis effectively declared war on Israel this week because they're in solidarity with the Palestinians in Gaza. Israel reported that they intercepted incoming projectiles from the Houthis in Yemen using their air defense system.
So it's confirmed. It's not speculation. Okay.
Yeah, and that's why the U.S. sent their naval assets out there to help Israel because they knew that the Houthis in Yemen were going to start putting drones and missiles towards Israel to kind of help with that. Now, some of the targets in Israel may have been hit. We haven't got confirmation from that. There were targets that were hit. We don't know if it was the Houthis that hit those targets. And those targets were in the south. This is why we think it's the Houthis. It was in the south. It's close to the Red Sea, and that's where the Houthis kind of operate.
You just said think it's the Houthis, and I just asked if it was confirmed it was the Houthis. So is it confirmed or do we think?
It's confirmed that the Houthis fired projectiles, rockets, and drones towards Israel.
Okay.
Israel says that they intercepted those projectiles.
Okay.
Targets in Israel were hit.
I got that.
But they don't know if that was because of the Houthi attack.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess the wording was a little off, or maybe my brain's a little off, which both things are possible.
Juice boxes.
Juice boxes.
But no, that's why I love you being here, because I'll just start saying stuff and I don't think a lot because I like to put everything in the front of my brain when I want to talk. So I
put everything in the back.
Yeah. Well, you have. Yeah, I like to talk. I say, I just work in facts and logic and stuff. But when I'm talking, I talk a lot. You'll hear me be very, very fast and quick and aggressive. And that's my emotional side. And all that information is in the front.
And you want to get it all out.
Yeah. And I want to get it all out before I forget it.
Right.
And so sometimes that will lead me to say some things I didn't really mean to say.
That's how he is in arguments too, y'all. Yeah.
And so I love you doing that. And I also ask listeners, don't stop listening, please. Please don't stop listening. If you disagree with something I say and I may have misspoke, reach out and I can either clarify what I said or say, hey, that was wrong. That's really not what I meant to say.
Right.
And then I can tell you what I really meant to say.
I don't think you said anything spicy there at
Okay.
all. So I don't at all. So what do you think the motivations are behind those Houthi attacks?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Houthis are showing their loyalty to Iran.
Right.
They're also showing that they support the Palestinian cause. Yes, the Palestinian cause.
The
They
Palestinian
don't say
cause.
Hamas.
Okay.
So that is
That's
something.
kind of a, like, some people refer to it as, Hamas, and then these groups are referring to it as like the broad general Palestinian cause, and it's hard to differentiate between those two things.
That is
whenever
because
you okay.
Sorry. I just want to say that's because
please explain.
Hamas is winning the information operation campaign.
They are winning.
Yes.
Okay.
And I was talking to someone who's within the intel community, and still within the intel community, and so they're getting a lot of reports on this stuff. And what they have told me is that they really believe that Hamas has gotten another military to sort of teach them the IO sphere and how to control the information operation sphere. And this is one of the key things. When when you see a protest, you'll see pro-Palestine, right? Pro-Palestine. Now, one of the chants of the pro-Palestine is, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That's an anti-Semitic trope.
Okay.
That means we want to eradicate everyone from the river to the sea. Pull up a map, look at Israel, you'll see what I'm talking about, the river and the sea.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So to say, nope, if you are coming out and saying, hey, I'm going to go have a pro-Hamas rally, that's very difficult for you to explain, right? Especially in the Western culture.
Right.
But if you say, I have pro-Palestine, that's very easy. Because yes, I will say, listen, I'm pro the people whose houses are being bombed. Like, I don't want that to happen. I don't think that should happen. But I also don't think, and I know for a fact that Hamas is setting up shop in these places so that they can win this information operation campaign. So they'll set up a headquarters within a hospital in Gaza. Well, Hamas is underneath it, right? Within the tunnels. And civilians are within the hospital. You fire off some rockets towards Israel. Israel's going to retaliate. They're going to hit the hospital, kill civilians. Wrong. Don't do that.
Right.
But now Hamas has the upper hand.
Also true.
And so they are definitely, if you look on social media, Hamas is definitely winning the information operation campaign.
I mean, I can attest to that. I've seen a lot of videos that you've walked in and caught me crying several times in the last week or so, and they were all videos showing Palestinian civilians in the aftermath of a bomb or an attack, and it just rips your heart out, and it does make you think, what is Israel doing? Why are they doing that?
Yeah, they're looking for that emotional response that we're all going to have.
And
when
they
you
got
see
it
a
from
baby
me
in the hands of their mother, and the
dead
baby is dead.
Right.
That's gonna elicit an emotional reaction from anyone, I would hope. If you don't have that, you are a sociopath, and if you don't know that you're a sociopath, that's confirmed it, and you maybe need to get some help.
Yeah.
If you can look at a baby that has no fight in the game and has died and said, well, they deserved that, I'm telling you, you're a sociopath, and I'm not a psychologist. So go find one.
Yeah.
It's tragic, and you hear me laugh a little bit because I have to hold back sometimes the emotion from it, and that's one of the ways I do it.
Eyes are welling up again, like the 5th time this week.
So we'll keep moving on because, man, we are already thick into this episode.
Like you said, this is a very layered nuanced conflict. It's not as simple as one side against the other. There's so many layers. There are also, like you said, IO campaigns going on where, obviously one side is winning more than the other. And
but both sides are doing it.
I know. Both sides are shooting out all that propaganda, trying to sway people one way or the other. And it can be confusing, and it's overwhelming, and it's like soul crushing. It's just not an easy thing to see from afar, from the safety of my home on my phone or my laptop. Being in it and imagining being in it is, I don't have the words. There isn't a word in the English language to describe what those people must be going through.
There isn't. And if you can't be compassionate to the civilian side of this, maybe reevaluate your worldview. And I hope that comes across as advice. I have to do this all the time. Because I was U.S. military. We are an ally of Israel. I have to sometimes see images that are being put out, and my first thought is, well, that's fake. That's got to be fake.
Yeah.
And that's why I think what we do is very important, because that's my initial reaction, but then goes the analysis of the situation. And then I can put the things together and go, oh, they really did bomb a hospital. Or this really is what happened, and then analyze the situation from that point of view.
Right.
There's too many comments on social media towards media posts that I find very neutral, that say something like Israel hit Hamas targets here. And there's a bunch of comments that say, false, they were just targeting Palestine. Or a bunch of comments of Palestinians being killed, and comments going, those are all Hamas. Those are all Hamas. And it's like, you didn't actually read the article or read what was going on. You have a worldview, and your initial reaction to that was to comment your worldview towards that post.
Yeah, and I think it's also a way that people protect themselves from that sort of information. They don't want to believe that maybe they should look at things from a different perspective. And so obviously they're going to look at these videos and these pictures and the headlines of the news articles and try to reformat it so that it fits into, like you said, their perception of what's going on.
Yeah. And what I have found in this particular conflict is there is more misinformation being posted on social media, meaning fake videos, fake photos, fake analysis from trusted open source content creators.
Right.
Than any conflict, than the Ukraine-Russia conflict, than anything that I've seen in the last 5 years. I'm talking video games.
Probably more than that.
Yeah. But it's like footage of video games being promoted as what's going on in Israel and in Palestine.
I haven't seen any of that yet, but
I will guarantee you have seen those videos.
You think so?
Yes.
Okay.
So what's happening now is because of how realistic video games look now.
Oh yeah.
People are starting to post those because they want to gain clout. And this is a social media.
That's
issue.
So gross that people are trying to gain clout from this.
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with you?
We'll get.
I don't care if that sounds ugly or not. Like, there's something wrong with you if you're doing that. Like,
I don't think that sounds ugly. I think that's very true, and I don't think any of those people are listening to this podcast. So you can keep saying it.
I just got a hot flash.
Let's get back to what Iran is doing with the Houthis.
So let me go back and re-ask the question.
Okay,
and you can, I don't know, pick up where you were going to where we stopped. But okay, the question before we went off on another tangent, because we want to make sure we put out as much factual information from both sides as possible. And obviously, they're both trying to manipulate the West and, not just the West, but, the entire world and make sure people see things their way. So, okay, what do you think what are the motivations behind the Houthi attacks? And then we promise, guys, we're going to try to stay on task.
We're going to get through this.
We will, maybe.
So the Houthis want to show loyalty to Iran, support for the Palestinian cause. That's where we kind of got off track because it's the Palestinian cause.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because I was confused. I'm like, some people are saying, never mind, we're not going down that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and what's
rewind it like 5 minutes.
What's the Palestinian cause? It is to have a home. That is a legitimate Palestinian cause. And that's why I say it's an information campaign, because if you say you're pro-Palestinian, that's great. Palestine, the people in Gaza having their own home,
right,
is something to support.
Absolutely.
Supporting Hamas, who you can say you don't believe me, but they chop the heads off of civilians. And that is confirmed through their GoPros.
Like that Shani, that woman who was at that music festival. They paraded her, they beat her, paraded her naked body through the streets, spit on her, and chopped her head off. And
this is confirmed through their own sources.
Yeah, they're proud of it, guys.
So there's that.
Okay,
so the Palestinian cause, which having a home, I think that's a legitimate cause.
Here for it. Please. Yeah.
They're also trying to expand the scope of the conflict because they want to put more pressure on Israel and its allies.
Which is the West.
Yes. So once again, we're seeing how Iran is trying to stay out of this conflict because they're going to utilize their proxy groups to carry out these attacks on Israel. My hands are clean. I'm not really doing it. But hey, let me funnel this money through black sites and dark web and stuff like that. Now, why is Iran doing that? So the hope from Iran is that this is going to deplete Israel and, by proxy, the U.S. stockpiles. And that would be devastating when, okay, scratch that, not when. I'm going to say if, let's still try to deter this, if a world war kicks off in the near future.
Which I feel like more and more people are talking about that happening. But let's still keep this on topic. What are the implications for the region?
Yeah, the Houthi attacks indeed increase the risk of a wider regional war. And a wider regional war is going to involve Iran and its proxies on one side, Israel and its allies on the other. That's what we're talking about when we say a wider regional war in the Middle East. It's going to have serious consequences for stability and security in the region, global energy supplies and markets. It's going to affect everyone on a personal level. These conflicts make an already deteriorating global economic system even worse. Like I said, it's going to affect everybody on a personal level. That's why we're trying to stop this. That's why we're speaking out against having these kind of things.
And that's probably why Biden and Xi are going to have a meeting in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
You're like, nah. All right, hold on.
You know my thoughts.
Yeah, I know. And now, okay, we have Germany warning Europe that a global war could be coming. I know we're still trying to we're trying to put out in the universe that people don't do this. But, Germany is warning Europe that a global war could be coming. Do you know exactly what was said? And do you agree with the German government?
Okay, so this came from Boris Pistorius. Great name.
Pistorius.
Yeah, well, I like to say Pistorius because it rhymes.
I know. No, be polite.
Dave's
and
listening and he's
his
like,
name.
You got it wrong.
Yeah. Yes. My Uncle Dave is definitely listening, and he's definitely like, shut up, Kervin.
And so who is Boris Pistorius? He's the German defense minister. He said that there is the potential for war in Europe. He stressed the need for increased armed forces capability to maintain peace in the region. So that increased armed forces capability is a deterrence method. I think he's absolutely right. And he is spot on to highlight the need for increased armed forces capability to deter a war, to maintain peace in the region. So there's the old saying of if you want peace, prepare for war, not go out and make war, but you've got to prepare for it. And the more you prepare for it, the easier it is to come to peace because you've deterred the other people from going to war. I would say the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022, that was a wake-up call for the whole world.
Entire world, yeah.
Yeah.
What about Germany's response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine? I mean, we kind of talked about it, early on, that Germany probably wasn't doing enough compared to other smaller European countries that were within the vicinity, within Russia's reach,
No, you're exactly right. Germany faced a bunch of criticism because their response was delayed.
Right.
They had this initial reluctance to provide those Leopard tanks to Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, it did send those 18 Leopard tanks, but that was after other allies offered their own Leopard tanks. Poland did. So Germany didn't do enough at the beginning, I would say.
Okay.
But countries like Estonia and Lithuania, they offered much better support to Ukraine, and that's even though all the countries,
small economies, small
defense.
Small defense, yeah. But they were also a little bit closer to Russia.
Right, but Poland, Germany, all of those countries were all worried. Lithuania, Estonia, Finland, Sweden, all were worried about further aggressions from Russia.
Apparently not worried enough. Talking about Germany.
Yeah.
Apparently not worried enough. Well, okay, how are other European nations responding to these emerging threats?
Yeah, some nations boosted their defense budgets. Some strengthened NATO forces along the eastern flank of that Russian border. We've talked about this a lot. Countries like Finland and Sweden requested NATO membership. Finland got it. Sweden's still working on it. I think this conflict in Israel is going to prevent Sweden from joining NATO because Turkey is focused on pro-Palestinian things.
And Turkey was the holdout, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe it's Turkey, and then Hungary kind of held out too, but they're waiting on Turkey to make the decision.
Okay.
Now, there's still a need for swift and energetic improvements in defense capabilities, and that's all across Europe. Europe kind of went away from their defense plan.
Kind of stagnated. Yeah.
So while everybody pointed to the U.S. because, we spent a lot of money on defense. And so all those countries looked at the U.S. as the police. We're going to be the police for the rest of the world. We're going to bump up our defense spending every year.
Because we have the money for it.
Yeah. Let me go
This isn't increasing our debt at all.
Yeah, let me go check our bank account.
We all get crap for not being able to pay back our student loans and stuff like that. But we're over here just raising the debt ceiling and ignoring our already incurred debt.
Yeah, I know.
I hate that.
But it's important. I want to say it is important because
obviously, yes, defense is important. I'm just talking about from the money perspective. That was another tangent that I went on.
But I'm saying it's important to acknowledge the possibility of war, which is what Germany's doing, but also work towards peace.
Mm-hmm.
That whole, if you want peace, prepare for war. Countries can't just boost the military spending just for the sake of spending. Sometimes I think the U.S. does that. Sorry.
I'm not, yeah.
If anybody from the Pentagon is listening, and I know a few people are, you agree with me.
Yeah.
We just spent for the sake of spending.
Yeah, we do.
We need to have diplomatic efforts. And those diplomatic efforts must be balanced with the increased armed forces capability to prevent escalation. And the more you bump up your military capabilities, the more you can promote dialogue to countries that may be adversarial.
Right.
So the key term I want to continue into 2024 is deterrence.
Okay.
So it's much better for everyone to succeed on a diplomatic effort. And this is something, if you read, any military book, you would rather never fire a single round and win the battle. That's what you want.
That's true victory.
Yeah. That's what the art of war is all about. That's why every military leader
is required
reads
to read
The Art of War.
which you've read I don't know how many times.
I know.
So
Now I'm
yeah.
journaling it, so we'll see how that turns out.
Oh, yeah, and you do have a journal. Yeah. But anyways, obviously, that is the outcome that everyone is hoping for.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, another region that could see a large-scale conflict is the Western Sahel. And this week, rebels in Mali took over a camp that was recently evacuated by the UN peacekeeping mission. I don't know. MINUSMA.
Yeah,
Is it?
you
Or
can
do they
spell
say
it out.
MINUSMA?
MINUSMA.
MINUSMA. Okay, I didn't know where the emphasis was supposed to be in that acronym, and it was in the town of Kidal.
Mhm.
So what do you know about the situation in Mali right now?
Yeah, very significant. This is like an internal battle for territory within Mali. The permanent
Land again.
right. It's always about land, right? We kind of always say that war is religious. It's always like it's about competing religions. But like I said, take God out of the equation, take the religion out.
I don't feel like it's always about religion.
That's what a lot of people say. You know,
Who's a lot?
Commentators on the news, they will say that we went to war in Iraq because we didn't like Muslims. They'll say the Israel-Arab wars are based off of religious differences.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I've seen those comments, but I don't
Maybe
see
this
a lot
comes
of this
from my religious background.
Yeah, which he does have a super religious background, which made him a beautiful person, but it also made him an open person. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jesus.
I'm not.
That wasn't a joke. I'm being serious.
No, I know you are. I'm just saying, just because I came from a very religious background and I've kind of turned away from that strictness, it's not that I kind of crap on religions. I think I love history, guys. I'm a very historical person. And I think religion plays a part in history, and I love it. I love reading about different religions and how they started based on history. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
I mean, you got to get it as early as possible to get to the root of it. You know what I mean?
And how far back. And oh, man, this could be a totally different podcast that we could do.
Yeah. We can't go down that. We cannot go down this route.
14,000 years ago, and you're talking about, I don't even know. Let's get back to
let's talk about ancient aliens.
So the Permanent Strategic Framework, which is a Tuareg-dominated alliance of armed groups, recently relaunched a rebellion against the state of Mali. They said in a statement that they are now taking control of the areas abandoned by MINUSMA in Kidal. But even before the camp takeover, tensions were expected to rise further in the Kidal region once the UN did depart from that. Now, the Kidal region has been the center of insubordination for Mali because of the CSP, the Permanent Strategic Framework, and it's been a launching point for independent rebellions. That's shaken the Malian government since they said that they were independent.
When did they say they were independent?
Oh, that's a great question. I wish I knew it off the top of my head, but it was very recently.
I'm surprised you don't. No,
I just crossed the border. I don't care whenever they were claimed to be independent.
Oh, are you talking about when you accidentally?
Yes.
Accidentally went. Oh, I forgot to bring up the question about Yemen, but that's okay. We'll talk about it at the end. It's actually can be something at the end. Okay.
All right, write it down. Now this is huge because the Malian army has already suffered multiple defeats between 2012 and 2014 in the region.
Okay, well, the Western Sahel and really the majority of Africa, I mean, it doesn't just appear to remain in flux. It obviously is in flux. Like they've had multiple coups in the last couple months. And one country seems to be expanding their operations on that continent. And obviously, and unfortunately, I am talking about Russia. So what can you tell us about Russia's expanded operations on that poor continent still having to deal with people trying to friggin' influence them. They
And
just
shame on
wanna live their
everybody.
lives. They just want to live their lives, and y'all are like, we're going to take all their resources. That's why Wakanda is hiding.
That's why Wakanda is hiding.
That's why Wakanda is hiding from you guys.
That would be a good reason to hide.
Right.
Yeah, Africa is chronically unstable. It's because of everyone around them.
Meddling a-holes.
Yeah, but this is providing numerous opportunities for expanding Russian influence.
Yeah.
So the governments of Mali, Sudan, CAR, the Central African Republic, Niger, Burkina Faso, they don't fully control their own territory
Right.
because of all the meddling that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And they all face terrorist insurrections. A lot of them are facing full-scale civil wars.
Mm-hmm.
All of that coupled with Western military assistance is providing inadequate support.
Okay.
And it's something I've said as somebody that has provided support within Africa.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. The support is inadequate because it's only focused on one thing.
Which is?
Terrorism. We're going to eradicate terrorism, but we don't fully understand the civil discourse in the region.
Yeah, the cultures and the people of the area. Like, didn't they kick out some like some countries kicked out France?
Yep.
And they're
Yeah.
So I mean,
Mali, Burkina Faso. And that was we talk about IO, information operations. It was an IO campaign from Russia and China to say these are colonizers and they're not giving you the support you need. We will kick out France, the US, the UK.
But if they weren't giving sufficient support, they kind of were colonizing, to be honest.
But they
were just there to, and I don't know. That just...
But sufficient and note. So I don't think Russia or China gives any support to these countries in Africa.
I'm not trying to imply that these two
No, I know you're not. But when I say sufficient support...
Yeah, what do you mean?
I'm not saying they're not giving any support.
Okay.
Or the support. So I said the support is inadequate because we're only focused on terrorism. But that support to terrorism has done a good job.
Okay.
Whenever
it needs to be more broad.
Yes.
It needs to cover more than that. It needs to cover
because
civil conflicts and economy issues and resources and stuff like that. And it shouldn't just be about what we get in return, which unfortunately is the mindset of a lot of these countries that claim they're helping in the area. It's about what they can get out of it. And then whenever they're done getting whatever they need out of the area, they're just going to abandon these people again. And then they will be dropped back into turmoil again, but without resources this time because we took them all.
Yeah. And I want to look at this from a historical context.
Okay. I'm sorry.
So no, it's good. The one example that I like to bring up is NATO-backed forces. You'll remember this. NATO-backed forces overthrew the Gaddafi regime in Libya in 2011.
Remember that guy?
Yes.
I do.
Omar Gaddafi.
Yeah, I do. I don't know.
When that happened, Moscow, Russia, fueled a civil war because they supported General Khalifa Haftar's rule. As a result of that, Haftar now controls more than half of Libya. So when I said that these countries don't actually control all of the land that they have, this is one of those cases.
Okay.
Now, within Libya, they only have 1,200 troops from the Wagner Group.
Oh, geez.
In Libya. But Russia has turned that half of Libya into a de facto Russian client state. And right now, Russia is looking to establish a naval base there.
So did any of that change after Prigozhin's death in August?
You would think so, but not really.
Oh.
So Russia's deputy defense minister actually traveled to Benghazi to assure Haftar that Russian military would support his regime.
Okay.
So in October of last month, Haftar traveled to Moscow to meet with Putin. So he got to meet with the big guy himself.
I did not,
Right.
You didn't see that in the news at all.
Yeah. And
That is wild.
the problem is the media doesn't focus on Africa enough. I've been bringing up the problems with China and Russia's influence in Africa for how long now? 2 years. How long have we been doing this podcast?
But I mean, you've been mentioning it even before that, though. Like personally,
You're right.
in private, you have brought it up and you mentioned it whenever you'd come back.
Yeah, because you don't understand it until you get there.
And you have been there a lot.
Now, some analysts,
Okay.
and I'm putting myself into those analysts, I agree with this,
Okay.
expect that with Russia, with Russian backing and NATO's focused on Ukraine, a new conflict. So we're talking about another conflict coming up because it seems to me that Haftar is going to launch an offensive to take complete control of Libya. So that's another thing to look for in 2024.
And obviously, because of these other large-scale, massive conflicts, everyone is distracted because we didn't even know that this guy went and met with Putin last month.
And so when everybody's distracted, it's the perfect time to carry it out.
It's the perfect time for people to carry out their most awful desires.
And Russia has arguably expanded its influence in Africa more than... So in recent years, they've done it more than any other external actor, to include China, who I've talked about a lot as being one of the most influential forces in Africa. Russia is now. And the plan is to expand more, and they want to out-influence Western nations like France and the U.S.
Well, it looks like Africa remains a massive power struggle for superpowers like China and the US and Russia, which it shouldn't be that way, guys. We are not supposed to be like competing for power in that country. We should be helping them. Okay, so now I want to get into this surprising planned meeting between US President Joe Biden and Chinese President leader Xi Jinping. This was almost unimaginable 6 months ago with the rhetoric that was going back and forth between our two countries. We were trying to out-talk each other. Without really doing anything, but we were trying to out-talk each other. So are we actually going to see a meeting between these two leaders? And how significant, I mean, you can hear it in my voice, like how significant do you think this meeting is going to be?
So right now, an agreement is in principle. So we don't know if it's going to happen, but they've agreed in principle for them to meet in San Francisco in November. But the important details do still need to be hammered out. The meeting is going to be very significant if it happens, because it comes in the context of continued, just like you said, almost unimaginable because of the continued tensions between the two countries. But we do, I think, need diplomatic engagement. The relationship between the two countries and the two leaders has faced challenges. You know, Biden's emphasized the importance of preventing competition in U.S.-China relations because those could escalate into conflict. Critics, myself included, have accused Biden of not taking a strong stance on issues like Chinese exports of fentanyl that is huge in this country. It is directly coming from China. Also, the transparency regarding the origins of COVID-19. This is not some right-wing conspiracy theory. We don't know where COVID-19 came from.
Right.
Talk to Jon Stewart. He knows.
Yeah.
He's like, hey,
okay,
we have the Wuhan lab. It comes from Wuhan. I don't know. Could be that.
Jon Stewart did say that.
The last year of relations have soured more and more. So much so because Biden characterized, I'm going to harp a lot on Joe Biden because that's where we're at. We're in the U.S. And I think...
And we're allowed to do that here.
We're allowed to do that. And the president of the U.S. should understand that words matter.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, this year, he characterized the presidency of Xi as a dictatorship. Obviously, Xi's going to be mad about that. Let's go to China. Why do I think China is influencing these tensions? We have the Chinese spy balloon. If you believe that was a weather balloon, I've got some oceanfront property in Arizona that I'd love to sell to you.
Oh my God, you did not use that old.
Oh yeah. I mean, if that's what you're gonna believe, it was a spy balloon.
Yeah.
They were trying to spy on things. There was this year. I'm gonna look back in December
On this year, I don't even
the
want
geopolitical
to.
events.
Like, I'm scared to do that.
It's crazy. It's been a crazy year.
So, what do you think the two will discuss? Obviously, besides, the conflicts, right?
Yeah. So
Two
the
major conflicts.
wars in Russia, Ukraine.
I think Xi knows that a third world war is not in his best interests either.
Yeah.
Like,
I hope so.
It seems like it, but I feel like that's part of what is motivating this talk between good old Joe and him.
Yeah, and China has increasingly sought to flex its diplomatic chops on the global stage.
And this
both
is a
of those
good way to
conflicts.
do it and
Yes.
to be positive and not so antagonistic.
But it is a direct counter to U.S. diplomatic efforts. So whatever the U.S. is pro-Israel,
Mhm.
China is pro-Hamas.
They said flat out Hamas, or did they say
They are ready
Palestine?
to, yes, they have said Hamas.
They
which
said
is why
Hamas.
So I was talking about how I talked to somebody who thinks that they're IO, and I kind of brought up China as part of who would have done a good job in teaching Hamas how to present an IO campaign to the world. And I brought up China, but they really haven't done a good job. They're talking about how Hamas was very much they were right in how they did things. So it could have been Russia. Russia does a great job of an information operation campaign.
Yeah.
It could have been Russia, but
well, let's not speculate on this stuff. Let's focus on what we need to talk about, because we have gone on so many. Well, I think it's just the last few weeks have been so emotionally charged, and there's been so many layers that we've had to kind of peel back the layers of that onion and not just give you guys the little tidbits that we usually do, the little like Cliff's Notes versions of things. We have to get more into detail because it's so
nuanced,
layered.
That's the word.
Yeah, and nuanced. And we can't. It doesn't do these conflicts a service. Like it does a disservice for us to just do the little snippet. So that's why we're kind of giving more detail than we usually do, because
it does a disservice to who we are, because we want to bring levity to all these situations.
Well,
so if we just take one side or the other, it's not right.
Well, I don't think levity is the right word, babe.
Okay.
We're not trying to lighten it. We want people to understand the scope. We want people to understand the heaviness of it, but we want them to understand that these are two groups that are going head to head, using other groups of people to manipulate, Yeah,
and listen, all the diplomatic stuff that China's trying to do, let's not gloss over the fact that China retains very solid ties with Russia and with Iran,
right,
which is a key funder of Hamas.
But because Iran hasn't specifically been, it hasn't been proven at this point.
Yep.
Obviously, they understand that a world war would be catastrophic for the entire world. A lot of it is posturing.
Yes. Yeah. And I hope it stays posturing and not escalating.
Action.
I would rather posture than escalation.
Action. Yeah, exactly. So on your confidence scale, how likely is it that we could see improved relations between the two countries? I hope I want them to take their egos out of this. It's not about who's better, who's the top country in the entire world. It's about protecting people. It should be about protecting people.
You're not going to like my answer.
And
you know my scale, right?
Yeah,
I go from 0 to 10, 11 to 50, 51 to 100.
Okay, don't do that right now. You're confusing me.
Okay.
Just
so
get
that's
to it.
Unlikely, possible, probable.
Right.
I'm at unlikely.
So do you think this is just more posturing?
Yes. I think, you want to know what I really think?
Well,
everyone...
be careful. Be careful.
Okay. I'm going to try to be very careful, guys. I think Xi sees...
We can't speculate that hard on something.
I think a lot of people are going to agree with this.
Well, I mean, it's fine if they agree, but the thing is as of right now, we don't have enough information to definitively say one way or the other that, like, yes, this is just a show for the world to kind of make people think that they are not capitulating, but more open to discussions with the West. Like,
I think Xi sees Joe Biden as a shell of a man and that he can manipulate him.
So you think that's what it is?
I
that would make sense. I
honestly believe that he wants to do this meeting.
Right.
And we'll talk offline more about my personal
Well, I mean, it's
feelings,
not...
but...
I mean, now that you mention that does make sense because Joe, his faculties are not all there. And if anybody says differently...
The Joe of 1980s is not the Joe of 2020s.
Exactly.
And I think everybody sees that. And
I think everybody does.
I'm sorry for saying Joe. He's President Biden. Very sorry for that.
Yeah. We just casually call him Joe in our country. But he is President Biden.
He's president of the United States. But I think Xi, President Xi, sees this as an opportunity to maybe manipulate President Biden.
Does he not realize that there are other people there probably influencing the government more than our president is?
He knows that.
Faculties?
But he also knows that
he can run his mouth.
What the president says,
right?
The American people are going to listen to, whether they agree or not. It's going to form a lot of America's opinion. But I also understand. Listen, say whatever you want about Joe Biden. He is not pro-China. He's not pro-war. Like, he really isn't. And I haven't met the guy. I don't know him personally, but I do understand in his rhetoric and what he's saying, he does not want war. I know that for certain. That's a fact. I'm going to tell you right now, that's a fact. And you can challenge me on it. Go talk to him, and he will tell you that's not what he wants. It's not good for his presidency.
Yeah.
These two superpowers have too many competing interests. That's the problem.
Really?
There's so many significant obstacles to compromise. That's why I put it at unlikely that we're going to see improved relations.
Okay.
Because Xi still plans to reunify Taiwan.
And that's not going to change with a conversation with President Biden. Okay.
And President Biden is going to tell him, hand to God, President Biden is going to tell him the U.S. is going to defend Taiwan if it invades China.
Right.
We're still going to abide by the one China policy, but if you invade Taiwan, we are going to defend that. And that's what the U.S. military is preparing for.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Biden is going to say it. I don't care what you think about President Biden. He is going to say that. And so I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, okay. Let me compose myself. Okay.
I'm going to have a little drink here because that's too much for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's too much for anyone with a soul. So, okay. We have two major conflicts, two possible regional conflicts in Africa on the horizon.
All right. Mali and Libya.
Yeah. In Mali and Libya. Yeah. An impasse in relations between two world superpowers. And just when you think it can't get any worse, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security is now cautioning everyone that a Hamas-style attack could happen in the near future. And last week, you did a wonderful breakdown for how to identify a possible attack and how to protect yourself and your family. But with this new statement, I want to get your analysis on the likelihood of an attack and where you think it could possibly take place.
Brace for that.
Yeah, and how an attack on the scale of one that Hamas carried out in Israel would change everything going on, the whole landscape of what's going on.
You know me. I want to take the easy question first before we get into the difficult kind of stuff. So,
right.
I'm going to answer the last question first because that's the easiest question and the least nuanced answer. So I don't have to talk a lot for this one. That doesn't mean I won't. It just means I don't have to. So the type of attack that Hamas carried out in Israel, it's a full-scale coordinated terrorist attack. It's on the scale of 9/11 in the U.S. We've talked about that. I've told you that is 100% true. It's on the scale of 9/11. Not hyperbole. It's factual. Okay. I'm having a tough time remembering an attack on this level since 9/11. If you can think of anything, please tell me.
Anything globally?
Globally since 2001. If we have seen anything globally since 2001, I would like to know, because everything that I have seen has been these like lone wolf or individual attacks on various sites or pieces of infrastructure. So how would another attack like that affect the global landscape? All right, we know how old we are.
We're about to age ourselves.
We can kind of remember the world pre 9/11.
Don't say kind of, honey. We were like, both you and I were almost 18. We were 17 years old.
But I never flew.
Happened.
I had not flown in an airplane.
You never flew at that
before
point?
9/11. No, my first flight was to South Carolina to go to basic training.
Oh, okay.
That was my first ever flight.
Okay. I flew my entire life. Yeah. And I can tell you, before 9/11, my little sister and I would fly up to Oklahoma every single summer to go to Inlanchka, which is our native dances. But my parents would always make sure that we had a layover in the Dallas airport because my dad's parents lived there. And my grandma would always make a point, and they would make sure the layover was like a few hours. And so my grandma would drive to the airport in Dallas to meet up with my little sister and I on our way to Oklahoma for the dances. And she would go up to the gate that we were at, no ticket, and people would be smoking in the airport in their little areas. But she would meet up with us. We would go have lunch. We would hang out for a couple hours. We'd have a grand old time. She'd bring us presents because she was our grandma. And then she would leave. And that was just the end of it. She was able to just walk right into the airport, walk right up to the gate, hang out with her grandbabies for a few hours, and then go back home. And that is not the case.
So take what Tiana said, because I didn't have that experience.
Yeah, that was what we did every summer. I mean, we would also go see her after in Lanchka, so don't think that was the only visits that I got with my grandma, because that was not. I went to see her frequently.
Can you kind of talk about what in Lanchka is? Because it's not dances. It's not. We always think of powwow.
Well, we don't like that word.
I know. I'm saying that from a guy that's a white American guy.
No, I mean, this is completely irrelevant to what we're discussing right now, and I apologize for another tangent, but it's.
No, I think it's important.
It has nothing to do with this, but I'm so sorry. It's the ceremonial dances of my people. They used to take place in the fall. And it used to be exclusively men until, I don't know if it was the 70s or the 80s, where they decided to let us women start dancing.
Because they needed somebody to cook their food.
No, we always cooked the food, baby. We always cooked the food.
Oh, but you couldn't participate in dances.
At that point, it wasn't, I don't know if it was like all dances, but I know in Lanchka was very important. I don't know what I'm not going to pretend like I understand.
Do you know what Inlanchka means?
I would have if you didn't ask me that question.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I could have answered that probably 30 seconds ago because I knew the actual meaning of it, and I can't right now.
So we'll get back on track.
So, yeah, because I don't want to say things and be incorrect.
No, I get that. I get that. Look at me. I understand that completely.
You're the one who put me on the spot, buddy. So we're gonna have a discussion about this afterwards. I appreciate that.
But listen to what Tiana just said about, travel,
airport access,
airport access. So you kind of get your answer. The world's not the same.
And you used to be able to if you didn't have a ticket, if you talked to the ticket agent and you needed to go on the plane for something, you could be I don't have a ticket, but they could walk onto the plane and, I don't know, talk to another passenger or get something off the plane. That's happened. I've had family members walk on the planes too.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So
take all that in.
That changed after 2001. We're so old, babe.
Because of the type of attack. So how would another attack affect the global landscape? Hear what Tiana said and you have your answer. It's not the same. How the world changes, though, depends on the attack. Because the TSA in the U.S., I'm sure a bunch of people have gone through the TSA. That was established in November of 2001, and it was a direct result of 9/11. We've also fought multiple wars and conflicts as a direct result of 9/11. Our lives, you and me, I'm saying this, you and me, Tiana, our lives were changed due to 9/11.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why it's easy to understand the world's not going to be, it's going to be very different in this world if another attack happens on the scale of that.
Yeah. So do you agree that we will likely see another attack at that scale within the next year, or let's say the next 2 years, maybe?
Yeah, that question is the toughest question to answer.
Because they have to get more creative now, because obviously in 2001, social media did not exist really at all. I mean, if you consider ICQ or AOL, ICQ or AOL social media or chat rooms.
Our listeners are going to love this conversation.
Oh my God, I'm so mad at myself right now. That's about as far as social media was. And if you don't know what that was, good for you, you little baby.
But this is also like a chicken or the egg dilemma, because there's so many factors at play. So it's difficult to say. Right now, it's difficult to say whether the West did a great job right now of identifying and neutralizing the threat, or if terrorists just didn't plan to attack the West again.
Yeah, we don't know if it's just been inconvenient.
Yeah.
22 years.
But I also want to say, because, listen, the intelligence community gets a lot of flack, but the intelligence community has played a crucial role in preventing attacks.
I agree, and I'm also biased.
Right. Since 9/11, there were, I'm going to tell you this is not a secret. It's not classified.
Yeah.
But I just want to tell everybody what has gone on since 9/11. There were 30 planned terrorist attacks that were foiled by the United States alone.
Wow.
Those are lone wolf attacks. Those are not on the scale of 9/11 or Hamas.
And that's, yeah.
I view the intelligence community like an offensive line in American football.
Of course you do.
Right, because I'm very much an American football fan. An offensive line works tirelessly behind the scenes to keep the quarterback safe. You don't really see it, but it goes unnoticed. You only look at the quarterback, what they're doing, throw it to the receiver, give it to the running back. It's only when something goes wrong that you start to criticize. Oh, that person let up a sack, or that person allowed this person.
Okay, you need to calm down. We have an international audience here, and they're not going to know what you're talking about.
Or and sorry, because
it's okay. You don't have to come up with another analogy.
I just want everyone to recognize that the intelligence community's they've made significant strides in thwarting terrorist attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm very grateful for that.
Me too.
And for the hard work and dedication that went out to that.
I'm just mad about that one time TSA screwed up my suitcase.
Well, let's not even get into TSA.
I think we've talked about it.
Yes.
Anyways, okay, but you kind of circumvented my question. So what is the likelihood that we will see another large-scale terror attack in the U.S., Canada, Europe, New Zealand, Australia? Where do you think this could happen?
So, like I said, that is the toughest to answer. So, since you brought up the various pro-Western countries, love all of those countries.
Yeah. We love all countries. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I love them.
Say we don't just love Western countries, you little...
I will say, I mean, and we do that. We have some sort of concept about a country, and then we travel to that country, and it completely changes. And it's like, oh, I love that country.
Well, like we've said a million times before, we love Russia.
Yeah. I did not want to go to Russia when we went to Russia in 2016.
Adamant. But that was his conditioning.
And so,
that was your
oh my goodness, I loved the culture. I loved everything.
It was wonderful.
Off topic again, but
yeah, sorry.
I loved it. So it's like I said, it's just the toughest question to answer. But since you brought up all those pro-Western countries, let's start with, if there were an attack to take place.
Okay.
The answer's twofold. The attack's most likely going to target a large metropolitan area like New York, yes, DC.
I knew it.
Toronto, London. I mean, you kind of get the gist. The large.
It makes sense they would attack the seat of the government of the country that they most want to destroy. That makes sense. But
also all the large countries.
So, yeah. Obviously, all the large countries like Toronto and London. So,
I'm sorry, large cities. Sorry.
Cities, yeah. Woo! Sorry. Yeah. So, why do you believe it will target a major metropolitan area? Like, give us the actual reason behind that.
Well,
obviously, like most people are like, that's common sense. Why wouldn't you attack a large city if you're trying to, make the most damage?
Yeah.
Where would you go?
And historically is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Historically, that's typically the target for coordinated attacks because you get more bang for your buck.
That's such a gross...
I know, it's lack of a better cliche.
Oh my gosh, that's so gross.
Because it is bang for the buck. So
stop!
And what I'm about to say is hypothetical.
Okay.
I want to make clear it's hypothetical because there's no plans that I have seen
for an attack
right now. But I kind of like when I do this, I put my mind within a terrorist organization. What would I do to cause the most amount of terror? Are you going to hit Times Square during New Year's Eve?
Maybe.
Or are you going to hit Mamou, a place most people listening have, I'm going to say, never heard of?
I was in Louisiana for a really long time. And I even, like, my first venture into Louisiana was to this town in Lafayette, which is close to Mamou. And I still never heard of that town until I started dating you.
Right. Which,
never heard of it.
For our audience, that's where I was born and raised. Mamou, Louisiana.
And it's
1,300 people live there.
I mean, I wouldn't want to live there, but it's a wonderful little town with so much culture.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I didn't want to
I'm not crapping on Mamou.
Okay.
I'm just saying, if you're a terrorist organization,
you're not going to hit Mamou.
Yeah. You choose New York, right?
Right.
Especially during New Year's Eve in Times Square.
If I was unhinged and wanted to.
Over 1 million people travel to Times Square for New Year's Eve. And even though there's increased security, 1 million people puts a strain on police and local government officials. And that makes it easy for individual terrorists to hide in plain sight. That's what you want to do, hide in plain sight. I can tell you, I was born and raised. I can tell you from experience, if you look a little bit different and you go to Mamou, they're not going to hate you. I'm not saying that. They're going to notice that you are different.
Whenever I showed up when we started dating, and everywhere we went, everybody knew you.
Yeah.
Everybody knew who you were, and they're like, who's that? everywhere. They were welcoming. They weren't nasty or anything, but they were like, I've never seen this person before. Why are you here?
And you got noticed.
And it wasn't my best moment, but okay. So anyways, I totally get that. It makes all the sense in the world. So what exactly is preventing a terror group from carrying out the attack? And if they do, can you finally answer my question about your analysis on the likelihood of this happening?
Yeah, and I'm not trying to skirt around the question.
Hold on, I just want to apologize for my vocal fry. I have a lot of drainage.
Sorry. We'll try to fix that in post.
I don't care if you fix it or not. It doesn't matter. It just happens. But my voice is like not cooperating.
And I'm not trying to skirt around the question either.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be. I'm not trying to skirt around it because I think I'm going to be wrong or I think I'm going to scare people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to scare people. I'm just trying to get everybody aware of it. I'm deliberately not answering right now because I think it's better to ease into the answer after evaluating the entire situation. So to answer your question on what may prevent a large-scale attack, all of that takes resources. To do that kind of a planning for an attack takes resources. The Hamas attack on Israel took 2 years to plan out.
And the 2011 terrorist attack, even though we freaking trained them in Texas, in Texas.
Well, let's not even get into that.
Okay. Okay, but that took several years too for them to plan that out.
It took a ton of years. Not a ton, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just saying things now. That's hyperbole.
Yeah.
But it takes resources, it takes willing participants.
It takes time. It takes conditioning. It takes training.
Extensive planning.
Indoctrination.
And if you are missing any one of those key aspects, it's going to be tough to carry out the attack. That's the problem. But will we see a large-scale terror attack on the West, the global West?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of factors go into that. Right now, I'm at possible.
Okay.
So that's under 50%. And that's because the world's so much on high alert now that it's going to be very difficult to coordinate another attack and then successfully carry out that attack when so many eyes are on the problem. So
when we're all hyper vigilant.
Yes. So unless more information comes out about an imminent threat, and I understand the U.S. government warned about a potential attack, but that's a direct result of what happened in Israel. It's not based in new reporting.
Like so it's not like they think there's a possible attack that could occur. They're just trying to plan for the possibility.
It's a reaction.
Right.
So that's where I stand. Yes, be heightenedly aware of it. But in the next 2 years, I could be wrong about this. I don't see a large-scale terrorist attack happening in places like the U.S., Canada, New Zealand, Australia, a lot of the places that our listeners are listening from.
Okay. So, thank you, Kervin.
Can we talk about the influencer conference?
Well, you didn't even let me I was like, you could have waited for me to finish the question, then you could have been like, well, let's talk about the influencers conference.
Now everybody gets a good look into our conversations.
He's obviously super pumped about it because he wanted to talk about it right at the beginning, and that's not what you guys are here for, and that's why I told him to shut up until now. Talk about it, babe. Lay it out.
We're going to be there. I think we may be the most influential voice there, but also Andrew Yang is going to be there. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah.
But if you're listening to this and you're going to the Military Influencers Conference, come talk to us. We're going to be there. It's the first time Tiana's been back to Vegas since 2008, 2009.
No, what are you talking about? We went to Vegas with Liz.
Oh, never mind. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Why did I forget about that?
Silly goose. I don't know. We went to it was not 2008.
2020. Yeah, 2020.
Was it 2020? Yeah.
Everything was shut down.
Was it 2020 or 2020? No, it had to be 2020.
Summer of 2020.
You had to travel for work because that's when you were doing like travel security.
Yep.
So that's why we went
for travel security.
They're like, you guys went to Vegas in 2020? What is wrong with you? We had to go for work at that point in time.
And it was a blast.
It was.
This should be a lot of fun. And if you are still thinking, I don't know if I want to go, listen, Andrew Yang's going to be there.
Right.
I'm very excited about that. If you are a veteran that listens to this, it's a very important conference. There's a lot of support. If you are a military spouse, it's a very important. There's a lot of military spouse information that's going to be put out. So
also,
I would recommend it.
Kervin is also running a panel at this. We're not just going to go, like he's running a panel, and we have new stickers. So we'll give you guys some stickers if you want some stickers. They're beautiful. We have been holding off on like making any merch for ourselves because it feels weird.
It does. I don't know. If you guys would love to wear a shirt that has the podcast on it,
I don't know
me.
why
I'm not
anyone
making it
would
until
do
I
that.
get enough conversations with people that they would actually wear it.
That
it's so
still
weird, right?
does not sit right with. That's weird.
Listen, it took us a year to put our faces onto the podcast.
It did. It took us a year to put our faces, and then we have not updated our pictures since then because we don't want to put our faces. Not
Correct.
Because we're ashamed of it. We just are private people for the most part. And it just, I don't know, it just feels weird. People associating us with, I don't know, anything.
Correct.
I don't know. I'm starting to get like the ick right now. Is that's what the kids say, right?
The ick.
The ick.
We can close it out. We can close it out now. I just wanted to tell everybody, if you are like, if you wanted to go to Vegas and you're like, I don't know, there's nothing going on there. The Military Influencers Conference, if you are a veteran, and there's even Canadians, it's Canadian military that's coming out there. So,
is this a specific shout out to Allie and Caleb?
I mean that too. But there are different countries' militaries that are coming out, so it's a global military influencers conference.
That's actually really interesting. I didn't know that aspect of it. I thought it was specifically American. So
and you know me,
cool.
I am a proponent of face-to-face communication.
And I'm like, let my husband do the face-to-face communication.
So
I'm just kidding. I'll talk to you. I can be nice sometimes.
And these conferences are very important because things get put out that you may not hear through the podcast or newsletters and stuff. We will have conversations with people and agree to kind of things that we're doing in the future. You can be a part of that. So I just think it's very important.
So anyways, if you're going, just slip a little message to us and we can meet up because we're going to be there the entire time. I don't think I've ever been I've been in Vegas that long, but I was 12, so that doesn't count. I had a lot of fun in Vegas at 12 years old, but that's another story. Not that I didn't gamble or anything, but it was a lot of fun for my 12-year-old self. My sisters and I had a lot of fun. Is there anything else that you
No, that's it for me, unless you had anything you wanted to add.
No. Well, we want to thank you so much for listening to our humble little geopolitical podcast, and we hope that you found it both informative and engaging. If you have any feedback or suggestions for future episodes, please let us know. And if you would like in-depth coverage of these stories and more, follow us on Instagram at Oakland Analytics.
Tiana, thank you so much. And until next week, stay safe out there.